find out whether or not the meeting is actually in order once Diane does the roll call. So Diane, if you would go ahead, please.
Good evening. Nate Collins. Reginald Durandis. Ayiti on Axion Inc. Laura Fellman.
Here.
Rachel Frischberg, School Board
Here.
District 3. Brandy Gabriel.
Present.
Latoria Hilliard, Coalition for Black Student Achievement.
Present.
Dr. Mendez, Hispanic Education Coalition.
Present. Hello, everyone.
Charmaine Postel, Palm Beach County Council of PTA PTSA. Sheila Scott Lubin, Palm Beach State College.
Present.
Imran Siddiqui, School Board District 5 Chair. And Christine Tibbs, School Board District 2.
Present.
Okay, we do have a quorum.
Wonderful. So first off, I'd like to say welcome and great to be able to, and I see someone else has just joined.
Yes, Laura, before you get started, as Ms. Wood has indicated, I think we do have a quorum, but you do have two individuals that have joined us virtually and I think it's Jesus and Mr. Beast. So you may want to ask the other individuals that are on to unmute and introduce themselves.
Okay. Jesus, I saw that, by the way, Mr. Beast signed on and then left, so I just wasn't sure.
Okay.
Do you show that he's still there?
Let me go back. I just let you know as soon as I didn't realize he left. No, it appeared that he has left the room, but we still have a Jesus.
Okay. And Jesus, would you go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, so I'm Jesus Rojas. I'm just a parent of a student in Palm Beach County.
Ah, wonderful. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
And I noticed that Charmaine Postal has joined us as well. Charmaine, you are there, right?
Hi, good evening. Yes, I'm sorry. My Google Meet had to be reinstalled. I am here.
Okay. Okay. So and we have two other people who've also joined, it looks like. We have a nice full meeting today. So if you've joined late, if you would please just add the information into the chat so that Diane can capture your attendance, that would be great. And we are going to switch things in order a little bit tonight for the agenda. But we will do the public comment first. So forgive me for not remembering, Dr. Sheffield, but is it 3 minutes for public comment? Is that correct?
Yes, it is 3 minutes for public's comment. Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if anyone is here who wants to give a public comment, but if so, now would be the time. If you are interested in doing so, and you're here virtually, if you would please raise your hand so we can call on you, that would be great.
I wonder if the parent who joined came to give a public comment.
I'm sorry?
A parent joined, right? Jesus Rojas. So
Yes.
I wondered if there was he wanted to offer.
That's what I'm asking, if he wants to speak.
No, this is the first meeting I've attended, and I'm just trying to get a feel for it, so I don't necessarily have any specific comments.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to give you that opportunity. If you come again and there is something, then you should be aware that we do have the time set aside for public comment if you so desire, and etc. Okay, so I do have a meeting concurrently with this starting at 6 p.m. So what we're going to do is switch the order of the agenda. I will be stepping away for about 15 minutes and then coming back. But while I'm away, if we could go ahead and get started on the presentation and get started with that. And I will be stepping away at 6 o'clock, and then I will come back at about 6:15. And before we do the presentation, I just also wanted to say, I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but I want to offer congratulations to Dr. Sheffield for on her upcoming retirement, as well as her future new position as superintendent, and I forget the name of the county, but in South Carolina. And it is just a whole bunch of great news for her for both of those items, and she will be sorely missed here in Palm Beach County. It has been an honor and a pleasure to work with you these past ever so many years, and your dedication to the students is shown through in everything that you do. And helping to shepherd our county through all the ramifications of COVID was quite impressive. And I just want to wish you all the best, and thank you again for all that you've done for our students and our families here.
Thank you, Laura. Definitely would not be saying much about I'm choking back the tears after being here in Palm Beach, the same district for 31 and a half years. And of course, my success lies heavily on individuals such as yourself, all of you all that are on, that are here in our squares, that are in the room with me, the team, because of course, beside every great leader, there are phenomenal team members, and that's what ensures the success. So I'm just grateful for the partnership with the group here over the past 6 years in leading this group, as well as the teams that I've just had the opportunity of working with, the 31 and a half years here in Palm Beach County. I definitely do not take it for granted. I'm leaving with grace. I've learned a lot, and looking forward to this new chapter in working with the large urban district and working alongside some of the best leaders here in Palm Beach County and throughout the state. And more importantly, the opportunities that this district provided me with a national platform. And now I am going to South Carolina. I'm going to a much smaller district, a rural district. I'm just looking forward to continuing just maximizing those opportunities for our student learners and our adult learners. They're just in a different space. If I reach out and wanting to partner with each of you, wanting to talk about some of the resources and things that we can continue and maneuver there, by all means, like I tell the others, do not ignore my phone call. We still have a common goal and have a shared vision. And that's just being there and making certain that our student learners and our adult learners are being put in positions to where they can excel to their fullest extent possible. So I just thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Just the partnership, the collaboration, and the work. And Palm Beach County will remain home to me, definitely keeping our home here. So I will be following Palm Beach County. I have a vested interest here in Palm Beach County. And that will leave it there for now. So it's not a goodbye. It's just going to another chapter and continuing the work. So again, thank you all from the bottom of my heart. And I did see we had Christine from Path to College that are on. So Christine, welcome. Welcome and joining us this evening. So that's it for me, Laura.
Thank you.
If you would like, we will go ahead and, turn this portion of the meeting, like you said, you will need to step away for a minute, over to Dr. Miller. Dr. Miller was with us in November. In October and November, we were not able to meet because we did not have the quorum. October, it was around the initiatives that we were doing with our attendance policy, around with our students and how that was going. More importantly, the collaboration that we have with Judge Kroll and the county. So hopefully Keith team will be able to come back and continue to lean in and share the work that we are doing. And Dr. Miller is going to, he was with us in November, and he agreed to come back tonight, which we're a little behind in regards to our Progress Monitoring 1 state data. Our students are actually gearing up for Progress Monitoring 2. But more importantly, all the decisions that we make should be all data-driven. So even though their students are getting geared up for 2, Progress Monitoring 2, it is still important that we go and look in terms of where our students are coming in with Progress Monitoring 1. And so I'll turn it over to Dr. Miller at this time. And then the latter, and I just want us, as we're starting with Dr. Miller, and I know that there will be a lot of questions, for us to just keep in mind that we still have a very important agenda item, the latter part that talks about the attendance requirements. Laura and I had a great meeting with our legal counsel that's going to help drive the direction of how we move forward in regards to some of the concerns around not being able to meet because we did not have a quorum. And as we always talk about, this group here is I like to call it it's the root, the brain there of that Venn diagram when we talk about our purpose, and that root cause is around academics. So we just want to set some cadence to where we will be able to continue on each month now with a quorum and have our meetings, and I think we're in a good place. So those are 2 big buckets that we want to talk about after Dr. Miller this evening. So Laura, are you ready to turn it over to Dr. Miller?
Yes, please, and thank you.
So Dr. Miller, thank you for coming back with us.
You're welcome. Happy to be here. Good evening, everyone. I do also want to extend congratulations to Dr. Sheffield. All of us here are very excited and happy for her, and we will miss her. So, academic advisory update on performance progress monitoring. So I'm going to go over 4 bits of data with this group. The first is I'm going to go over some overall results from our PM data with ELA and math, and I'll do a little level setting in case anyone's new. Then we'll jump into our ELA results by grade and subgroup. Then we'll do the same thing for math. And then we'll take a brief look at some prediction data that we've been working with over the last 2 years, and then take questions. Okay, so you're seeing 2 sets of bar charts on your screen, but I just kind of want to step back from that for a second. So for years, the state had an accountability test called the FCAT that then changed to the FSA test, I think in 2015. The state has now moved over the last few years to a FAST assessment, Florida Assessment of Student Thinking. And this is a different test than we've ever taken before as a state. We in Palm Beach County are also still getting used to this, but this is a very different way to test. So the old test was paper-based, sometimes it was on the computer, but it was 1 test in May. This FAST test is broken up into 3 progress monitoring or PM assessments. PM1 is given in August and September. PM2 is going on right now, December to January, and then PM3 is given in May. PMs 1 and 2 are meant for student growth, to give information to teachers and parents so they can help their students learn. The 3rd PM is our traditional accountability assessment that counts for school grades and 3rd grade retention and graduation requirements and all of that. Another difference with this test that we're still getting used to, frankly, is that it's a very adaptive test. So students come in the fall and they take a test. It starts kind of in the middle if they're just coming in 3rd grade. And if the students answer some questions correctly, it gets harder. If students answer questions incorrectly, it gets easier and kind of goes up and down until it gets to right where the student is at that point on a scale score, resulting in a scale score and level, which we're used to here in the state, levels 1 through 5, 3 being meeting standards, and then 5 being the highest and 1 being the lowest. So we've had to do a little learning here and across the state with how that adaptive test works, and we're still learning. But this is what we have. So in front of you, I'm going to look on the set of bars charts on the left side. This is ELA, kindergarten through 10th grade. The first bar on the left is in blue is PM1 from 2024. So that's the percent of students level 3 and above when they came into school last school year, August and September. I did not include PM2 data for now. When I come back and talk about this year's PM2 data, we'll talk about it then. But then the second bar is PM3. How did we do at the end of the school year overall as a system? And you can see there it's about 52.8%, some nice growth from the first PM to the last PM, which is part of that system is progress monitoring and helping students grow. The orange bar is this year's PM1, where our students came in. And as you can see, that is about 33.6% of our students came in level 3 and above, which is slightly above where we came in at the beginning of the year last year, which is good. We're not sure where we're going to end up. I know it's going to be good, though, on PM3 this year, but I just want to show you where we're coming in relation to last year. Jumping over to the bars, the bar chart on the right side, this is math K through 8th grade, so kindergarten all the way to 8th grade. You can see PM1, we came in at 13.3% at the beginning of the school year last year and ended over 55% of our students level 3 and above. You could also see this year coming in, we're at 15%, coming in level 3 and above, which is a little bit higher. I do want to point out, you might notice there's a difference between the PM1 in ELA and PM1 in math. We've been doing a lot of talking about this. Reading, the standards really build on each other, and it, really cyclical kind of work done on the standards, whereas math is very, very skill-based and very focused. So you'll see a lot fewer students coming in level 3 and above in math in the first PM compared to reading. Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead. So that's the overall results. And now we're going to look at, this is elementary, this is level 3 and above. It's the same layout as you saw in the previous charts. This first 3 bars are kindergarten. The second set of 3 bars is first grade, second grade, third grade, all the way up to 5th grade. Again, we have PM1 represented as the first bar, PM3, second bar, those are for last year, and then PM1 coming in this year. And as you can see, just kind of looking across from PM1 to PM1 for each grade level, we're coming in just above, some places a little bit higher than we came in last year, which is really good for us as a system that we're coming in higher than we did last year because we finished strong. I'm gonna leave this here just for a minute, just so you guys can look at it. Okay, so now we're going to go on to secondary for reading or ELA. The difference on this chart is we have 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, and 10th grade. So you see a similar pattern, whereas PM1 last year, we're coming in a little bit stronger this year in PM1. If you notice, some of the scores coming in last year compared to the elementary are higher. That students are building on their knowledge from previous years, which is great. But I'm going to stop talking and let you guys absorb this chart as well. It's interesting. Okay, sticking with reading, we're now going to look at subgroup data. So again, we're going to have PM1 and 3 from last year in the blue, and then PM1 this year coming in. The top row of bar charts represents our 3 main subgroups: Black students, Hispanic students in the middle, and white students on the right side. As we can see, we see the same general pattern as we saw across the grade levels, where each of our subgroups are coming in just a little bit stronger this year off the bat than we started last year. Looking at the bottom set of bar charts, at the bottom left, we have our RLs, our ESOL students. The first set of charts on the left is our LF students. And then on the right side is our LY students. Those are our students currently in our ELL program, still learning English, which is why we see those scores so low. Then we have our free and reduced lunch students represented in the middle bottom, and then on the right side is our students with disabilities. Again, all following the same general pattern, where we're coming in stronger than we started at the beginning of the year last year. I'm going to leave this up for another minute. Okay, now we're going to jump over to math results. And again, you're going to see huge jumps in math from PM1 to PM3 compared to the reading. Again, math is very, very skill-based, and students do need to learn those skills at each grade level. So here on this chart, this is elementary math results, level 3+. We have our first set of 3 bars is kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade. As you can see here, with the exception, so kindergarten, we're just up 0.1% where we came in from last year. In first grade, we're a little bit up, but in second grade, we're up too. It's third grade, we're just down just to 0.5%. We're keeping an eye on that. And then the rest are following the general pattern with a slight increase from the beginning of the year last year to this year. Moving on to secondary. Please remember with math, we only, the math test goes kindergarten through 8th grade. After 8th grade math, the students take algebra and geometry state assessments. Those are not fast assessments. Those are not taken 3 times a year. Those are only taken at the end of the year. So you're only going to see middle school here. So looking at 6th grade, the first set of 3 charts, again, we see the same general pattern. Our 6th graders are coming in stronger this year. Same thing for 7th grade. And same thing for 8th grade. I'm going to leave this up for just a moment. Now looking at the math results broken up by subgroup. Again, at the top, we have 3 sets of bar charts representing our 3 main subgroups. Our black students, Hispanic students, and white students. As you can see, again, they follow the general pattern. We're coming in just slightly stronger than we did last year. We see the same thing for our ELLs at the bottom left. We see the same thing for our students on free and reduced lunch in the middle bottom. And on the right side for students with disabilities, we also see the same pattern. Again, this is math percent students level 3 and above. I'll leave this up for a few moments. So I'm going to switch gears just for a second. If you've been around working with our school district for a long time, when we used to have the FCAT and the FSA with that end of the year assessment, we used to give a diagnostic test in the middle of the year usually December, January-ish, and from that, we built a prediction model to see, hey, this is where we think this student, Adam, should end up based on how he did on that diagnostic test at the end of the year. We use that information, speaking as a former principal, identifying the students that need a little more support. We're doing something similar now with with the progress monitoring assessments, but we have more data points. We have 3. We have PM1, 2, and 3 to use. So we build a prediction model based on the previous years where students started off and where they ended up. And we're calling that a checkpoint, CP1. You'll see a PM3. If you look at, for ELA, the first 2 charts, bars on the left side is PM3% level 3 and above from the end of the year last year. And then checkpoint 1 is where we took a look at the students' PM1 data and made a prediction of where we think they're going to end up this same grade level. And as we can see, checkpoint 1, as we saw in the general pattern from PM1 to PM1, is that we're projected to be higher in kindergarten. Moving across, this is all elementary. We can see the second set of charts, first grade looks like we're coming in a little bit lower. That's a grade level we'll definitely be looking at. We are looking at and providing extra support. Second grade, slightly stronger. Third grade, just slightly lower. Fourth grade, higher, much higher, predicted to end the year well. And then fifth grade reading a little bit higher. This set of bars on the right is all math, kindergarten through fifth grade. I'm going to let you look at that. I'm going to leave this up for a few moments so you can look through that. Now we're going to look at the same data, but for secondary schools. Again, ELA will be 6 through 10, and math will only be 6th through 8th grade. We can see for ELA, where our 6th graders are predicted based on PM1, based on their PM1 results to come in stronger, finish the year stronger than they did last year. Same thing for 7th grade, much stronger. 8th grade, slightly stronger. 9th grade, much stronger. And 10th grade, slightly stronger. On the math side, we can see our 6th graders coming in very strong. Our 7th graders coming in slightly stronger, and our 8th graders coming in a lot stronger than they did they finished the year last year. So when I come back after PM2 is done at the end of January, I'd probably have to come back around February to update you all. We should have an additional prediction data point. As we get closer to the end of the year with more of these PM data points, we get more closer to accuracy, we'll say, for the end of the year score. And that's my presentation. I know everyone's going to have some questions, so.
Yes, Adam, and Laura's still in her meeting, so we'll just go with the hand. But Adam, as they're thinking through the questions that they may have, a question for me, when we went back and we look at the math data, if you go back to elementary math, and I guess what came to mind when we looked at the math data for PM1 compared to PM3, let's talk about PM1 in regards to the students that are participating in AMP. So if you're an AMP in 3rd grade, then you're doing the 4th grade. Is that, how is the AMP data captured in this?
Right, so with the AMP program, Accelerated Math Program, students will come into 3rd grade, get all of their 3rd grade standards and some of their 4th grade standards in 3rd grade. But when the key is when they get to 4th grade, they then take the rest of the 4th grade standards and all of the 5th grade standards, and they take that 5th grade end of the year assessment.
Okay.
The goal is to accelerate the students so they get to higher level math courses in high school. So, really good question. So what in fact happens is our students that are in the AMP program, they're actually pushed ahead and taking the fifth grade, they should be taking the fifth grade PM1 at this point.
Okay,
And skipping the fourth grade.
okay.
That's my understanding. There might be some other few models out there, depending on student situation, but for the most part, those students would not take that fourth, they would take that fifth, and I think we see a little bit lower scores in fourth because some of those kids are
Because of those advanced students
Are jumping to
that are
fifth.
taking the fifth.
correct.
Okay,
Good question, Dr. Sheffield.
all right. Thank you. I had some others, but Laura, I'll turn it back over to you. You're muted.
I said, well, thank you. And I was going to ask if anyone else has any other questions going on regarding this particular.
I do. Yes.
Please go
Yes.
ahead.
This is Dr.
Go
Gabriela
ahead.
Mendez. So thank you for that presentation, and I'm so glad that you shared the data, breaking it down into different subgroups of students, because that allows us to see where there are serious problems. If we look at the data in general, it's still, most of the grades are in the 50%, and which is really bad. It's sad if you think about students, maybe like 40-something% of the students are not mastering literacy, reading, being able to understand main ideas, all that kind of thing is pretty sad. But I also would like to know the difference between schools that are more affluent and Title I schools, because that will show us also the big picture, right? Like the big gaps that may be between those types of schools. Because as an advisory council, I think when we can see these differences, then we can propose priorities of where work should be done. So I would love to have that information as well. Thank you.
So Dr. Mendez, when Dr. Miller comes back because these were the preliminary data, so when he comes back and doing the comparison, which Progress Monitoring 2 is really going to give the big picture, so it will be interesting to look at the data from Progress Monitoring 2 compared to 1 and 3 to where they ended the year last year, because then they would have had a whole semester of their Tier 2, Tier 3 interventions, and to see how those students have moved through the intervention. So when he comes back to do that mid-year point, sometimes February, not sure exactly when you all will get him on the schedule, then he is making a note to where he will be able to try to do a comparison with title versus non-title. Not sure what that will look like, but we'll try to provide that information.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Randy, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, thank you. I have just a quick question. With the new rule, the education rules changing, and that unless a student has an IQ is below 68, they have to be taught the general curriculum in the first 3 years. Correct? Have you seen an improvement in the scores of students with disabilities?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
The end of your question kind of got fainter. If you could repeat it.
Oh, okay, sorry. With the new rules that have come out, that students, I think the cutoff point is 60, below 68 with an IQ below 68. They don't have to do any of the general curriculum, but any students with an IQ 68 or above, they're required to participate in general curriculum and take the test up until the third grade. Do you think you're going to see a difference in an increase in the scores of students with disabilities overall because of that rule?
Are you talking about the access points, how a student
Right,
falls onto
versus-
access points and does not fall onto
versus-
access points?
Yeah, versus the general curriculum. Because right now, if you have an IQ of 70, you have to you have to go through the general curriculum.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
So do you think you're going to see an increase in the score, in the number of students doing better or scheduling up, getting, at least a 3 or 4? I mean, a 2 or 3, or have you seen any difference at all in the scores for students with disabilities?
I just pulled up the math subgroup results, and we could look at the bottom right side. That bar chart is the students with disabilities. I believe that access point rule has been in place for a bit, unless it was modified recently, that I'm not aware of. But
About 2 years, I think.
Yes.
Although time flies, it could be 3.
You could see there, just looking at the math, I think that's the math you're on,
Yes.
where you can see the progress with our students with disabilities. And then, Adam, if you go back to the reading, when you go back to the reading, you could see to where the progress, where our students with disabilities are making progress there as well. Now, are we, of course, we always want to see it going to the right, to where we're seeing where our students are, we're closing the gaps and getting to that level of proficiency. There's still a lot of work to do. I definitely agree with with Gabriel. We're never satisfied until we, of course, see that we have all of our students there on grade level. But to see the trend that where it's moving in the right direction, I'm going to say that we're making progress. But I'm also contributing that to much of the work that we've done these past 2 years, where we've been very intentional to where, ESE is there at the table. They are part of that curriculum team, part of teaching and learning, to where we are not working in isolation. We are working together and creating these strategies and understanding that many times, many of the strategies and things in which we're doing with our students with disabilities, it's going to work in our standard curriculum classrooms as well. So definitely seeing progress that are being made there. Still a lot of work to do, but progress, we do see our students moving in the right direction.
And in reality, when you do see a student with an IQ of 70, he may make improvement, but he or she is never going to do a 3, 4, or 5, on the FAST or any of the math, they're all going to, because years ago, 70 was the cutoff for IND. So they've just moved it a little bit.
But I think you're asking how it's changed from year to year. And if this was implemented 2 to 3 years ago, this information won't show that that answer to you, because you need to look at pre-implementation and post-implementation, and this is just post.
Yeah, that was just post. So I was wondering if they, saw an improvement prior to this,
Right. Well, we have
there was a lot of controversy over that new rule.
True, very true. I remember.
Hey, Laura, there's been 2 hands up before the previous speakers that spoke. I don't know if you
about to say, Charmaine.
Okay, I was going to say.
So we have 2 other people with their hands raised. So, Charmaine, would you please speak next?
No problem. Thank you. I had 2 questions. Actually, Dr. Sheffield answered. I had 3. She asked the original question that I had, but the question that I had was, one, I wanted to confirm. You said this was level 3, which is at grade level. Is it at grade level or above grade level with level 3? I believe
it's meeting the standard at the grade level.
Grade. Okay, so I wanted to confirm, and then my second question was, how can we see this for our individual schools?
So there is a link on this PowerPoint to the Power BI. There's a link on each of the slides. It says Power BI in the top right or bottom left. You could click on any of those, and that will bring up a Power BI dashboard that you could actually choose the schools you want to look at.
Should have known this from previous.
I hid it, and I didn't mention it to anyone. I should have. Thank you for reminding me, Ms. Postal. It's good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
And Rachel Fishbane.
Hi, everyone. So I'm looking at this data with the fast reading results subgroups, and what I find very interesting is that almost every subgroup has made a 20% increase. If you look at the Black population, it goes from 20 to 41, Hispanic from 24 to 45, about 20. And then you see a huge increase in your English language learners from 16 to 53, which is, very impressive. What I don't see, I see about a 20% increase in students with disabilities. But it's my understanding students with disabilities should be getting an accelerated coursework so they can make up the gains, so they can catch up to their classmates, just like the English as language learners. And I'm not seeing that. So they're still, only getting 30% are passing versus other subgroups where it's 40, 45, 69, 50. So what can we do? Because it's my understanding that students with disabilities should be getting additional, and I know it's individual, plan to increase their scores. But overall, we're not making the gains that we should be making to be catching up to their, peers that do not have disabilities. So is this something we can look into? Because it's glaring in the data that this additional gains, which is supposed to happen through ESE services, is not happening. So can someone investigate or look into it or speak to that?
Rachel, absolutely. But what I can say, we definitely will continue to look to make certain that we are, of course, doing everything that we possibly can in terms of maximizing and getting those students where they need to be. And a big part of that, alongside with Kevin, and his team, as we've been intentional, Kevin and his team, they're working, where we're talking now a lot with the school-based facing support, to where we are now pulling with our ESE teams as well, and making certain that many of those same kind of intentional support that we are providing, such as school-based facing, where we are utilizing central office staff, those that we consider to be, I hate to say the experts, but we're pulling some of the individuals that may not have a direct contact with students, going into schools. We're making certain that that's happening from within our ESE department as well, to where we're literally going in and making certain, not just with our ESE subgroups, but also with our ELL subgroups. And that's what we've been doing with ELL, and we're making certain the same thing is happening with our ESE subgroups.
Well, thank you. That's good to hear. So I know something is happening great with the ELL because the scores are amazing. So.
And I'm going to contribute it a lot to, in terms of this whole initiative that we have around the school-based facing support, in utilizing the staff that we have and those that are doing a lot of the professional development and working alongside with the teaching. So more in terms of we're still doing the professional development, but taking it to the classroom and doing what we called, where we're doing that job embedded PD, to where you can provide that mentoring, that coaching, and modeling of instruction in the classroom, to where they're working alongside with the teacher, with the student. So we're being very intentional with that, because we're seeing to where it is really working. So ESE and all of the areas now are really and truly tightening that model. And I think that's going to help us tremendously.
Thank you for that explanation.
And then, of course, continuing to work and looking and monitoring what's happening with our Tier 2, Tier 3 interventions and how those students are moving outside of the intervention. But we know that's another whole conversation, right? We can talk about intervention all night, but we are also being intentional about looking at what's happening with our students that are in an intervention, what the targeted intervention is, what we're utilizing, and how we are moving those students.
I should just say one thing. A parent recently contacted me saying that their child is currently in a charter school and wants to move to a regular school in middle school, and is currently receiving a certain program that is working well for the child. And they've been told that that program is not available at any middle school, even though it's on a reading plan. It's the recent Wilson Reading Program. And I know it's an individual case and so forth, but it's so frustrating to me that this parent is experiencing this when, we've been told that the district trains in, the Wilson Reading Program, but then cannot receive it. Does that, I don't want to.
I'm not following you because we do utilize Wilson. We recognize Wilson, and we have many schools that are, that have Wilson actually as part of their master board and scheduling based in regards to the targeted area for those students. And you and I both know we have a whole team over in Kevin's shop that does the training there with Wilson. So that's something.
Reach out to you because I don't want to be a middleman, but she has an email that she shared with me from an administrator that's saying that it's not offered.
Have her, if you can share my contact information, and you can have the parent to reach out to me directly, because I definitely would love to follow up with her, because I know the work that we are doing with the tier 2, tier 3, and we have really honed in and making certain that we are providing the professional development, the instructional pedagogy of our teachers. And like I said, we're even pulling the staff here from the office to go in and do job embedded, meaning working directly there with the students. So I really would like to talk with that parent and make certain that we're not giving, the misinformation, so we can help her. Please.
Wonderful. I will do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Randy, I believe your hand is raised.
Yes, I just have one quick follow-up. I'm curious, and it was brought to Rachel when she was talking. I was like, I wonder if they break out the students with disabilities by eligibility. Because if you have a student, let's say, with a speech and language delay versus a student with severe autism, but or a student with an IQ of 72, they're not going to make the progress that a student that might be have a learning disability or a language disability. When you're IQ 72, there's only so far you can go. So do they break it? Has it been broken out by eligibility at all?
We typically
the elementary.
We typically do not break it out that way, other than removing the gifted students out from that calculation. I'd be happy to look at that next time I come back to bring that back.
That would be, Adam, and thank you for trying to look at that, but I could just tell you in terms of what that will look like.
Yeah.
And to me, that's where it comes down into the classroom and to the individualized teacher, and where they're differentiating the instruction based on the needs of those students. And that's how you are setting up your intervention based on what those immediate needs are. So some of, as we peel back the layers to the data, because, data you can slice it all kind of different ways. When you come to me, some of the slicing is going to have to take place there at the individual school and in the classroom based on with the teacher, because it's going to help drive the instruction based on what the needs are of that student and those targeted groups. Because our assessment team is not going to be able to slice it all these different ways in which we're talking. So that's where we have to, and principal supervisors have to work with, the principals, they work with the teachers, and they do all of their slicing and so forth, and setting up, their targeted groups. I'm sorry.
Great. I do have a couple of questions myself. And part of this prior conversation reminded me of something that was discussed many, many years ago, which was determining annual yearly growth for gifted students. So do we pull that information out to see how that's being addressed, and that these students are actually progressing? Not just that they're meeting the standards, but that they themselves are progressing for a year's worth of growth within a year?
That would be Mrs. Baruch. Laura, I would actually I would hate to give you an answer on that. I would need to talk with Tara.
Okay.
She
I
handles
think
our
would
gift. That
be
will come with the
good to look at,
acceleration team.
Because if we're pulling them out of the students with disabilities and they're getting put into or counted amongst perhaps any of the other groups, it would be a good idea to understand how that particular group's needs are being met as well. And then I had questions. If we go to the math information, if we can go back to that screen. So, and I realized that there's a lot of the math, and I was reading the transcript as people were speaking, so I could stay attuned to what was going on in the meeting. I understand that the math is very skills based. However, there is part of the math work that is theoretical, and that developing that understanding can be very helpful as students progress through the math curriculum from year to year. But the other question I have is, what interventions, we often talk about reading interventions, but what interventions are in place with regards to math? And I appreciate that the AMP program has set it up so that the students are being tested more closely to the work that they are actually learning in the year that they're accomplishing it, because that does make a huge difference for the students to be able to be tested on the work that you're currently doing. And I just wanted to help get a better understanding as to what we're doing so we can have more of our students progress further within math, because it's a little scary to see that we have so much that don't have that information.
But one thing, Laura, I don't know
I
if
see
you,
you, Charmaine, but I'm going to wait for the answers.
okay. Laura, I don't know if you recall, but with House Bill 7039, I think it was, we've had so many, I think it's House Bill 7039, that has it was a new piece in there to where we must notify parents if we saw a deficiency, as soon as we notice a deficiency in math. And that was for K4. So what we have done, we've actually exceeded, and we're leading in regards to some of the work that we're doing around this. And we do have, and we have worked with our principals and created a group to where we now have we've created the math intervention pathway for our students, just like we have for our reading intervention. And part of what has happened is that as the state is continuing to work through this, and we're not depending on the state because in regards to the work that we are doing, because we know in regards to the state telling us what to do, because what we do know is that we find if our students have a deficiency, then we need to find ways in terms of, again, meeting those students where they are and provide those interventions for math, just like we're doing for reading. And one thing that we're trying to do, because we know that there are only so many hours in the day, is trying to work with principals and finding, because the state is explicit in regards to when that reading intervention must occur. But with math is that it should be occurring, but they're not as explicit in regards to outside of the math block or exactly when. But that does not negate the fact that we just don't do it. So what we're trying to do is trying to find a way outside of the math block where we are providing those interventions, where we find where our students are struggling and where it is needed. Whether it's before school care, whether it's after school, or doing tutorial, or how we have to structure our tutorial a little different. So we are looking and working through all of the different aspects, because our schools, trust me, it's not that they're not doing it, is that we're trying to find a model, because it's going to look different in every single school. Because again, it's just finding the time in the day around all these core content areas when you go and you think about the 90-minute reading block, you think about your math block, you think about your science, your social studies, your PE, you think about, your schedule in there for lunch. Your day is gone, right? So part of it is like adding, Yes, adding some additional hours. But what we're doing right now, like I said, is that trying to work and find this model to where we can work. And actually, I had a meeting this morning where I was talking with Kawana, our extended learning director, to talk about what some of the barriers that we find in terms of we're wanting to pull the students, because many times it's the students that are already there that are participating in our after-school program, whether it's 21st Century or another program. Is there a way that we could pull those students and provide, because if we hire the teacher and provide the intervention during that time, but it goes a little deeper and we have to be careful because in regards to how many of the programs are funded. If they're funded through grants and so forth, they just have some stipulations to where, and so forth. So those are the kind of things that we're working on. And just trying to figure out how can we and what can we do outside of that block. Because really and truly, the true intervention should take place outside of the core block. That's an intervention. Outside of that core instructional block.
Has there, I'll ask this as a follow-up and then I'll get to Charmaine. Has there been work to identify what is some of the root cause of the need for the interventions? Is it, are there disabilities that are impacting it? Are there, is there math anxiety that's impacting it? Is there a lack of just knowledge, without the disabilities? Has that been looked at to see and direct how this needs to be addressed?
I'm going to say it's all of the above. I mean, this past year we complete, Dr. Swiner and myself, the past 2 years, and we were just accepted for year 3. And actually a year and a half, because we started, last year was a complete year. Where we started this, it's called the K-9 Math Cadre Focus with Impact Florida. And what that is how we start, and we were doing some studies with other districts to where we did some studies around starting with how do we get our students prepared for algebra success from when they're entering kindergarten. And Dr. Swiner, and like I said, we've done a complete year and a half, and we got our final report the latter part of this year. If there's time and you're wanting to hear the findings in terms of how we are addressing the findings from that, by all means, that is something that, she could come and share with the group. But it's some work that we're doing with Impact Florida, along with 4 other districts, Palm Beach, I think it's Palm Beach, Broward, Collier, and I think Hillsborough, and it may be another district, to where we are collaborating throughout the year in, again, doing this study around K-9 math focus to how we adequately prepare our students. And we are talking about those barriers that are leading up to it. And like you called off, and I said, all of the above.
Right.
So it will
I think that would be a wonderful topic for us to hear in the future. I'd like to add that to our list, and to include in there what we're doing with it in taking that information and also applying it to pre-K, because there are math skills that can help set the students off. And I know, Charmaine, you do have your hand up, so you're up.
Thank you. That's a great thing, Dr. Sheffield. I would love for you to connect with you to see how you can have that conversation even at a higher level, where other parents might want to hear that throughout the state of Florida. But I will talk to you offline on that. But the question, I think it goes back to one of the things that I know in our household, my husband constantly come to me and talk about how it's frustrating regarding the different apps or applications that is used, whether it's DreamWorks or iReady. Which app or which I don't know, DreamWorks, iReady, which system or software is being utilized to connect to whatever the standards are?
Okay.
As a parent, I look at all the apps and I'm like, look, you need to be performing on all of them, but is there one app over another? Is it DreamWorks? Is it iReady? Is it whatever else they have out
elementary to your point, elementary is iReady Math. Your middle school should be using Dreambox, okay? We should be using Dreambox. Now, you may find, and that's what we have purchased as the adaptive for math. Now, you may find a middle school to where they may have purchased IXL, and they may have purchased IXL to where they're using it as supplemental, to where they're using it outside of the core. So you may find Dreambox and IXL.
Okay, so Dreambox is for math, is the core, and for
The
middle
adaptive.
school, the adaptive, and then for elementary is iReady.
And middle school, you may also hear, some schools may also use IXL. They may have purchased IXL on their own if they had some additional funding that they may be using for tutorial, so forth. Or they had a case to where they found to where, and they had the data to where the IXL, where they're using both Dreambox and IXL.
Is that for math and reading?
No,
for
middle school reading program is Reading Plus. Elementary reading is iReady Reading.
Okay. Because what I'm finding is I have a elementary, and I can tell you we've had iReady, and at some point we've also been introduced to Dreambox, and I thought that was also a middle school because I have a middle schooler as well, and so it helps me better when I go into a meeting and say, you know, hey, why are we having Dreambox when we're struggling here on iReady? Yeah, it helps me have a better conversation with his teachers, and that's me personally. But I've also had other parents that ask, what is the standards? Which, you know, you can see the standards, but what applies to the standards? Is iReady a direct impact of, hey, if that child is struggling on iReady, does that indicate that child is struggling to understand standards? Or is there something else that, do you follow where I'm going with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So that's where I was going, is trying to understand what exactly correlates directly with the standards, and you answered that question. Reading Plus and iReady Reading. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think that was, those were my questions. Laura, thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Well, thank you very much for this presentation. I think it was quite informative, and I look forward to hearing more regarding the future progress monitoring and also the follow-ups that we talked about.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Laura. And I want to thank Dr. Miller. I know he has to run out. And he actually had his mom, I think, is here. So he did us a favor coming in. So thank you, Adam, for coming in. Adam is definitely, I'm going to ask him to make sure he share with me the progress monitoring too, just to make certain that our students are continuing to move in the right direction. So just let Diane know. The committee will let Diane, Laura, you will let Diane know when you would like to have Dr. Miller to come back to show the findings of progress monitoring 2 as they're leading into spring state testing. But thank you, Dr. Miller.
Thank you, Dr. Sheffield. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, so if we could move on to the agenda and go back to the update from Dr. Sheffield, that would be great.
Okay, Laura. Well, I pretty much, I gave my update, as you were sharing I'm sharing the transition. And because we have not met in October and November, so I think I'm done with my update. Like I said, this has just been great, and I just can't thank you all enough. And definitely would like to just make certain that we are set for the January meeting, because of course this is my last meeting. So Laura, you and I will need to connect sometimes in the coming days to just talk about the January meeting, the agenda, because I would like to do my due diligence and just making certain that that I'm leaving to where we are set and ready for the next person to successfully take over, and you all have a great meeting in January.
Thank you so much. Okay, so do we now need to talk about the attendance requirements?
Yes,
Or has that already been discussed?
No, I think that's the next item on the agenda, and to me, that's the big piece. I'm just excited this evening of the participants and even having a parent on, with us. And I know as I turn this over to you, Laura, I'm sure that you will agree that we had a very good meeting with our legal counsel to just talk about the challenges in terms of just trying to get the quorum and to give us some suggestions and solutions to where we come together and how we can have these kind of meetings on a monthly basis. So I'll turn it over to you. You can go through everything that we discuss.
Certainly.
To everything that we discussed. And as I turn it over to you, I also want to remind you that our November, I'm going back to November. I think the January meeting, Laura, I think that's an in-person meeting. It's
Correct.
a recommended in-person meeting. Wanted to remind you of that.
So it is encouraged.
Encouraged.
Strongly encouraged that we attend in person in January. Of course, the formal format of the meeting will continue to be hybrid, but we hope to be able to be in person, and because the conversation flows a little bit more easily, we have better connections with each other and can do our work better, not only when we are in person, but we will take that energy with us into future meetings when we are not meeting in person. So I really hope that everyone will be able to show up. It would be great to see you in person in January. And in terms of the attendance requirements, if you refer back to policy 1.09, the policy states that if there are 3 absences consecutively, then the committee member is automatically no longer a part of the committee. So we realize that some people might not have been aware of this, and so we wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. And I know that Diane was kind and diligent enough to reach out to everyone to be able to remind them of this policy, as well as encourage them to figure out whether or not they will still be able to be committed to this organization, to this committee, to do the work and come to the meetings. Because without us being at the meetings, we cannot give that input to the superintendent, to give that feedback to the staff. And for those of us that are appointed by school board members, we also then have no topics to go back to the school board members and share our information with them. And so this committee was created so that the community, the parents, and various representatives around the community can give that input and help our school district meet the students' needs, meet the families' needs, and meet the academic needs, of course, of our students. So I hope all of you will continue to be committed and to come to the meetings. But in case something comes up and you cannot be at a meeting, please email Diane and let her know that you will not be able to be there. Because with that email, that prior notification, then your absence can become an excused absence. And according to I see your hand raised, Dr. Mendez, so I'll get to you in a minute. But as the policy is written, it is up to the chair to give approval for excused absences. Now, with the concerns about possible sunshine law, what we're going to do is we're going to ask each member, if you're going to be absent, to please email or inform Diane. And then at the beginning of the meeting, Diane will inform us, but inform me as, or whoever is chair, that these people have notified that they will not be present for the meeting. And then at that time during the meeting, those absences will be hopefully excused by the chair, in which case that excused absence will not count towards the 3 absences that could automatically trigger a removal from the committee. Dr. Mendez, I think you might have a comment or a question.
Yes, thank you. I have a request. When we receive the invitation, there is an opportunity to accept or reject. Last month, I think we were supposed to be there, and it was only 2 of us. And if I had seen, like, if I knew that everyone accepts or rejects the invitation, and I have seen that most people have rejected, then I wouldn't have driven there for an hour because of traffic took 1 hour, and I would have done it online. But we didn't have quorum, so we didn't do anything. But I think that accepting the invitation or rejecting it helps everyone know, be aware of what the situation is going to be. And it takes literally 1 second. Just click on accept or reject.
Right. And I have brought up the question about using the RSVPs as a metric to understand whether or not we will have a quorum and what we can expect. It was explained to me that sometimes we have people who say that they're going to come to the meeting, they've RSVP'd yes, but something comes up and they're not there, and vice versa, where they say no, and then they're able to make it, or they don't respond at all, in which case they come or they don't come. Well, it would be helpful if we could use the RSVPs as a reliable metric to figure this out, to know in advance if we could expect a quorum or not. The answer truly is it's up to everyone. And it would be wonderful if we could rely upon those RSVPs. And if people could take those actions, that would be very helpful. But in the meantime, we're still going to be implementing the policy as it stands. And Charmaine, you have a question or a comment?
Yes, I just wanted to apologize for last week. I was actually sick, or last month I was sick and did not make the AAC meeting. But I do want to give a shout out to Diane, because when we don't respond, she do a fabulous job in reaching out. I don't know, but I've seen her, she reached out to me if I didn't respond to the calendar invite. So I do want to just give a quick shout out to Diane for doing that. When we don't respond, or if she haven't heard from us, she do make it an effort to reach out to us and follow up with us. So just a quick shout out.
Understood and appreciated. So does anyone have any questions about this? So going forward, there are a couple of people who have missed 3 or more meetings in a row. So going forward, we will be, the staff will be informing the organizations or people who appointed these committee members and letting them know that those committee members will no longer be able to serve because they've exceeded their 3 absences. Does no one has any questions or comments? Okay, Dr. Sheffield, do you want to run the election for the vice chair, or shall I?
Laura, you're chair, so you can actually go ahead and run the election for vice chair.
Okay. So moving on to the next agenda item, Sherelle had resigned from the committee, and she was our vice chair, so we no longer have a vice chair, and we do need one. So if there are any nominations. I'm hoping there's a nomination for someone to serve as vice chair. So I open the floor to the nominations. You can nominate yourself or someone else. You might be wondering, what are the responsibilities of the vice chair? So it's to fill in if the chair is not available. So it would be to run the meeting. And if you are running the meeting, then it would make sense that you are the person who would be giving the update to the school board as to what we discussed during our meeting. And that can be done either by emailing the school board or by speaking at the monthly school board meeting. So it's not time intensive. It's not difficult to do. And I'm hoping that someone will do it.
All right, I'll nominate myself.
Thank you, Charmaine.
You're welcome, Laura.
Do we have any other nominations?
No, but I'll second Charmaine's nomination of herself. This is Christine.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, seeing no other nominations, congratulations, Charmaine, you're vice chair. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And do we have any other questions? We're at the Q&A portion of our meeting.
Yes, do I have to raise my hand or something?
Nope, you're fine. Go ahead and speak.
Okay, so in 2023, the Johns Hopkins School of Education prepared a report in which they analyzed textbooks and they look at the inclusion of Latino contributions in the U.S. history curriculum for high school. They did an excellent job noticing how many things were included and how many more things were out. So some students really don't see themselves or people who look like them in as part of the history of the United States, and neither other kids see them. Other students who are not Hispanics, they don't see Hispanics as contributing to the history. This is a great report. It has a method. It's very well done. And I think that this is the kind of studies that we should ask the district to do, to analyze our curriculum, not only the textbooks, but all the software we're using for education, to make sure that all the students, I'm not saying only Hispanics, but all students can see themselves and can see that they belong in the school and the district and in this country. So I would like, I can send this to Laura, the report, in case any of you want to see it. But I suggest that next year we start thinking about this, or maybe writing a proposal to propose the board to do something about analyzing the curriculum in terms of representation of all the students.
Dr. Sheffield, is that something that is taken into consideration during the textbook adoption process?
Yes, I mean, with the, we have the rubric that we use from the state, and then we have a rubric that's developed with the committee, but absolutely it is.
Yeah, it looks at representation. So it means if there is one person there, that's fine. It doesn't look at representation of the 38% of the students, proportional representation, for example. Like you can have one person in one book, and so the book is okay. I don't know if the rubric looks. I was part of the analysis of the text in math and science, and it doesn't look at the quality of how are people represented, right? You can have women represented like 50%, but are they represented as, scientists and doctors and moms, or just as moms, or just in the kitchen, that kind of things I didn't see in that rubric. So I think we can do better than the rubric.
And I agree, we probably could do better, but when we're doing, what I want to say, I want to be clear, is that with any adoption or anything, that what the team has to do is make certain that they are in compliance with what the state requirements are. So are we in compliance in regards to what the state is asking? Yes. And once they become in compliance in regards to what the state is asking, and we do make those notices, then we move forward. But is it always room for improvement? It is. And I only said that because I wouldn't want anyone to think that that team is not being operating and not being in compliance of what the state requirements are.
No, of course, the state's requirements are being met. It doesn't mean much. That's it.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, we've got the baseline of what the state requires, and you want to look at how we can do
better,
right, than what the state requires.
Yes. And I wouldn't focus on what the state requires, but on what's actually happening. And it doesn't mean at the moment of adoption, because yes, we're adopting new books, and that's a great time to analyze when the curriculum, right? But there is existing curriculum, there are existing software that had been adopted a few years ago, and so I don't know if they went through the rubric. The rubrics have been revamped, and they have been aligned with the new state requirements recently, so the last couple of years. So I don't know. I don't know if all the software has been analyzed in that sense.
Dr. Sheffield, I see.
Yes, Laura, I may want to make a recommendation, because if this needs to be an agenda item, you may want to add textbook adoption as an agenda item, and that team can explain the process, because there's no action that can be taken. And also, as we go through the adoption, and as we go through an adoption, we stay ahead of the state, so that when the state releases their state adoptive materials, that we make certain that we are purchasing what the state has on they have selected as state adoptive materials. Because one thing that we tend not wanting to do is that we want to make certain that we are in alignment with the state, because we're spending 20 of millions of dollars. We know how expensive an adoption could be. We always try to make certain that whatever it is that we are purchasing, that it makes the state adoption list. I'm a prime, and I'll leave it there, because we shouldn't be getting into much of that discussion, because it's not an agenda item. But I hear I hear Gabriel, I hear her loud and clear, and I only brought it up that you may want it as an agenda item, because she's making valid points.
I think so. I think that sounds like a wonderful idea, and that we will add that to the list of possible topics, and we'll go from there. Do we have any other comments or questions? Okay, well, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to come to tonight's meeting. It's been wonderful to hear your voices and see your faces and hold a meeting. It's been really great, since we weren't able to do it in October nor November. And so I'm really glad that all of you were here, and looking forward to seeing you in person in January. at the school district office. And again, thank you, Dr. Sheffield, for all your time and energy on behalf of students and working with us over these last few years, specifically with the Academic Advisory Committee. And I just wish you lots of great and happiness in your future with up in South Carolina. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
And a second?
I second.
Thank you. And the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Holidays.
Good night.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
I hope everyone has happy holidays.
Holidays.
Dr. Sheffield, we are
Congrats.
not happy.
Yeah.